Hello and welcome to the Deep NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Miss Man. How are we?
I'm good, but I'm a little bit irked that usually I'm coming here, I'm getting a red can of soft drink, but tonight it's a black can. It's a black Pepsi Max can. And I don't quite know what to make of it, if I'm being perfectly honest. No, I do.
It tastes very similar.
It does taste similar. Have you ever had a thumbs up?
Huh?
A thumbs up.
Is that the old soft drink that was like a soda from 2005? No.
Nah, so it's an Indian cola drink.
No. Oh, why would I have that?
Well, you're a man of culture. You've eaten in an Indian restaurant before.
Silly me Google's thumbs
up.
It
doesn't. It also doesn't have a B. Thumbs doesn't have a B. It's like THU.
Cool.
Yeah. Anyway, I would describe it as like if Coke and Pepsi had a baby.
Wow.
Because it's got the taste of Pepsi, but like the throat burning sensation that we all love from Coke.
We must be drinking different Coke because that doesn't happen to me.
The only reason why I drink Coke is because
it's been here.
Well, yeah, potentially. Because you've got me hooked on Thursday evenings. No, the only reason why I drink Coke is because of it just ravages my throat. Like I really feel that I'm drinking it. It's a real, there's like an extra sensory experience that doesn't involve my taste buds. It's right. Acting on my mouth and throat in a different way.
Yeah, like Pepsi comes out of the can half flat already.
Yeah, exactly.
And some people love that, and each to their own.
Coke is like violently carbonated.
Yeah.
The same reason why I love salt and vinegar chips so much. Yeah. Obviously, they're delicious, but also there's a bit going on inside the mouth area, along with you eat a whole packet of Red Rock Deli salt and vinegar chips, like you know about it.
Yeah,
you know about it.
And sometimes Toblerone. You ever tried to eat a Toblerone, biting it, and then it slipped up your mouth and scratched the roof of your mouth?
Nah, has that happened to you though?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a pretty rough start to my Europe trip in 2019 where I'd had my wisdom teeth out 2 weeks earlier. I still had some holes there. And then I've got this little syringe with plastic on the end. I might have actually told this story on the pod.
Did you? I didn't know you went to Europe in 2019.
Yeah.
When?
2019. February.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Before we started the pod.
Yeah.
And then I went to Europe in 2019 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, remember?
No.
I went to Europe. Remember we did the episode from the churchyard?
Yeah.
We didn't do many episodes whilst I was gone. Maybe one or two.
Yeah.
We did the episode from the churchyard.
Living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt so guilty.
Why?
Well, because we hadn't established a baseline of.
No, but we talked about when we started the pod, hey, you're going to go away pretty soon.
Yeah, but I was like, fuck, Sean's going to hate me. Going to knock him out to the pod for 6 weeks.
So this run sheet starts with EP 160. I think you'll be fine, Dante. But yeah, I just got my wisdom teeth out and I had this little syringe that was like, just, you filled it up with water and you slushed out some food that was in the back of your gross little holes, right?
Yeah.
And I really needed that. Obviously I was fresh off the wisdom teeth. I wasn't inflamed or anything, but I needed to clean out the old gums. And then I'm on the plane over to Europe, ate lunch, whatever it was, airplane food. What's the deal? And then I go to the bathroom, and then I'm resting it there. You're in a cramped little airplane bathroom. Accidentally press some button that opens the bin and drop it, and then the bin is quite a few meters deep because it's got to last like a big trip and maybe a return trip. So there's no way I'm sticking my hand down this airplane bathroom bin trying to grab that thing. And I'm just like, well, if my gums get infected, my gums get infected. And on that same plane ride, I eat a Toblerone. It slips off my top teeth and just grazes about 2 centimeters of skin from the roof of my mouth. It was a really rough start to the trip.
The Toblerone is also that part of the Toblerone is also point shaped. So it's designed for maximum skin gouging.
Yep.
If you were going to design something that would take the most amount of skin off when scraped, you'd probably design something like that just to really get in there.
Yeah.
Those Swiss really have thought of everything.
Yeah. All right, but despite me telling a story, you do have a story to start this pod with, so what is it?
So, I'm at work today, and we're doing a big clean out of this office space. So I work at the museum, the retail department at the museum has an office space that doubles as a storeroom, that doubles as a stock processing facility. So it's all kind of cramped and there's shit everywhere. Stuff no one knows where this is coming from. No one knows how long this has been here. No one knows why this didn't just get turfed. what is this doing? What business does this item have hanging around for 3 years? Lots of tables, lots of chairs, lots of furniture. Anyway, the last thing that we had to move for the afternoon came to be colloquially referred to as the Big Kahuna. And it's this gigantic oak desk. Probably shouldn't have been thrown into landfill, but they're
that sounds nice.
Get rid of it. Get it out of here. So, it's too wide to fit through the doors. So we can't take it down through the regular way that we would take it down to the skip. It's also too heavy to carry down. So we needed a dolly or a series of dollies to move it. And we went down to look for the dollies. And this in and of itself was a little bit of an odyssey because we've first gone to the exhibition space, then we've gone to the retail space to see if we had any dollies laying around, then we've gone to the carpenter's room is locked, then we found a back way into the carpenter's warehouse, found some dollies, got catfished because there was a dolly that had a cabinet on it, but then when I lifted the cabinet off, it turned out it was attached to the dolly. Anyway, we're kind of a bit dejected, and our boss who's showing us, there's two of us, he's showing us the back way to get from one side of the museum to the other, having to go down and around to go up, to then come back down and around with the table.
Not prime table walking area.
No, not prime table walking area whatsoever. When we come out of a lift and we see the biggest dolly I have ever seen in my entire life. This dolly was approximately 50 centimeters high.
Yeah.
The actual platform itself, I reckon, was 20 centimeters of like solid wood.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
The wheels were as big as my fucking head. It was like probably 2 meters by like 1.5 meters. And so we had to take this up from the absolute bowels of the museum, finding our way to not be disoriented because you're like, the directions is like, use the west lift, and you're like 40 meters underground. All of the corridors look the same.
Yeah, it's not the 40s. We don't know the fucking
You barely
directions.
even know what level you're on, let alone the cardinal direction. So we're going in and out of these lifts, and we're going up levels and coming out of the lift and being like, this is the wrong lift, this is the wrong level. Back in we go. All the while we've got this absolute monstrosity of a dolly. And it took us about 40 minutes to even get to the point where we got the dolly ready to go. Mm. And we've taken it up to the office, loaded the desk on, we got the desk out, taken it all the way back around, all the way down, chucked it in the skip, and my co-worker was finishing work at 4 o'clock. And we took the dolly back to the spot where we grabbed it, just resting on the side of a corridor hallway, of a wall in the corridor. Popped it back, pulled the phone out, checked the time, 4 p.m. And that's it. And it was really fucking satisfying to have gone through all of that. But whilst we were wheeling the table around on the dolly, which also was like the most unwieldy, like wheels kind of like, you know when you're wheeling a trolley and it's got a busted wheel and it's going like, does like the 360 spin while the other ones are all going in the same direction? Yeah. It's that, but on a much larger scale. And it felt like I was in a British sitcom where something absurd, quietly absurd, is happening in everyday life. And I just have to continue to go about this absurd task, acting like it is everyday life. Felt like an episode of Peep Show.
Butter the toast, eat the toast, shit the toast.
Yeah.
Butter the toast.
True Corrigan style.
Right, well, that's enough fluff. We all know what we're here to do. We are finishing off our off-season grades, one of our most anticipated podcasts for the calendar year. We are doing the second half, being the Western Conference. Obviously, if you missed last week, episode 159 was the Eastern Conference. But we'll kick it off with the Dallas Mavericks. We're going in...
Hold on.
We'll do that when we start it.
Alright, now we're ready to go.
This is a Daddy Pepsi.
Daddy Pepsi. Alright, off to bed now, kids.
Your mother and I are watching House of Cards. So the Dallas Mavericks added Javale Mcgee through free agency with a 3-year taxpayer mid-level exception. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. You're cringing a little bit, do you?
No, it's good.
It's from Clifton Hill.
Oh, I love Clifton Hill.
Local. No, it's actually called Local Brewing Company. they traded for Christian Wood and they drafted Jalen Hardy with the 37th overall pick. I'm not going to list the players that they lost to give up Christian Wood, but there's about 5 of them. I've given them a D-,
which is pretty red hot to come out with the first one. So
yeah,
I'd love to hear what you got to say.
So obviously they lost Jalen Brunson, and I know your counter argument here, but at the end of the day, they lost their second best player, and they didn't find a way to replace their second best player. I also think that they failed to look at the team and look what the team needs, and they've gone the wrong direction here. They've gone with Christian Wood, and it's not just Christian Wood because they've paid Javale Mcgee with a 3-year contract. Like, if you want to throw 1 year taxpayer MLE at him, it's like, okay, cool, he's a serviceable big, like, he was obviously on a really good Phoenix team last year, that's fine, but 3 years is like, okay, you've got some, it might not be that much money, but you've got a serious commitment to this guy here. You've also just traded all this stuff for Christian Wood, and I'm just a little bit like, and the problem is, I was actually going to give them an F, and I've gone with a D- just because, so I've got this sheet on I've got this Google Doc on my thing where just whenever I find news that's interesting, I'll write it down, and
That's very in character.
Yeah. So it'll have the date, it'll have who it's from, and just like some news that's just like, oh, that's kind of weird, but if, I'll either remember it, or if I'm writing an article about someone, I'll just press Control F and type in the player. And one of those things that I've always remembered is that last year, Christian Wood was rumoured to be traded to the Miami Heat, and then everyone, there was a rumour where Pat Riley's like, I want Christian Wood, and everyone's like, oh, how's that going to happen? You look at their trade assets, oh, it actually can't happen. But then it's like, oh, what is the trade there? Because they're not going to give up like Jimmy or Bam. So they were, the idea was going to be having Bam at the 5 and Christian Wood at the 4, and it's like everyone's like, oh, well, why would you do that? Christian Wood's a 5, like he's like a little bit undersized, but he's super athletic and he can shoot, and you'd much rather just have that at the 5 rather than a slower 4. So I just wonder whether that wasn't just a Miami thing, and maybe Christian Wood is actually going to be good at the 4 next to 2 guys, and Spencer Dinwiddie and Luka Doncic, that can get him the ball where he wants it. He can obviously finish lobs, he can obviously finish pick and pop, but still, just in terms of losing your second best player and sort of replacing him poorly. But I've gone with a D-. What have you done?
So I'm going with a C+. And I don't like Wood necessarily as a player, and I certainly don't like him on the Mavs. I think the deal itself was fine. Like they got what his objective value probably is. They got him for far less than that. But I don't think that
it turned out to be like the 26th pick or 27th pick?
Yeah, plus like 4 players who are literal detritus. Yeah. But I think I talked about this on the pod before, but like Luka plays best with finishes.
Yeah.
Whether that's someone like a Maxi Kleber who's finishing by hitting 4 threes in a game, or someone like Javale who's finishing by rim rolling and dunking. Christian Wood is not a finisher. Christian Wood is like a playmaker, but he's not that good at it. He's also played in situations where he's kind of had license to face up and develop his game that way, and you might say that adds a different element to the offense that they haven't had before, like a big who can actually face up and not be Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe a big who'll get a smaller guard on him at the elbow and not shoot a turnaround jump shot. Maybe that adds something, but they know what they have in Luka. They know what they have in their offensive system. They don't need that. So I think that it's kind of like a miscasting. Don't love it, but it's fine. I think on the Brunson point, though, like I'm finding it difficult to dock them too much because, yes, they did lose their second best player and not find a way to replace him. But it seems like he was just going to go to New York. Yeah. Which, if that's the case, like the only criticism you can have for them not retaining him is going back to 2018 and saying that they should have signed him to the standard standard rookie contract that would have given them team control for this year, rather than giving him the flat 4-year deal that they did, like, which obviously in retrospect was a mistake, but we can't criticize them for this purpose now for that. And if he decided he's going to New York, he's going to New York. But the flip side of that is, if they had paid him $120 million and said stay, or $125 million, we would be sitting here saying that's too much for Jalen Brunson. Yeah. So he's not someone who I think you can't live without.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that before they traded Porzingis away and brought in Bertans and Dinwiddie, Brunson was already thriving in that secondary playmaker, ball handler role, running the second unit and playing off Luka when Luka gives the ball up. So I'd be optimistic that based on what we saw in the second half of last season and the playoffs, that Dinwiddie can step in and do a facsimile of what Brunson was doing before Dinwiddie got there.
Yeah.
Which in that case, you're replacing that role pretty capably. Let's say that Dinwiddie can do 75 to 80% of what Brunson did last season. You're replacing that pretty capably, and then what you're really losing is like your third guard, like your third ball handler.
But they did have a three-headed monster. It's not like they're losing Ish Smith. They're losing.
I know, but like the practical reality is that like you're not paying Jalen Brunson $30 million a year. You're just not, because if Jalen Brunson has an average year in New York, that's instantly one of the worst contracts in the league.
Yeah.
You know? So I can't dock them too much for losing him. In terms of like, are they closer to a championship like now than they were 6 weeks ago? Like probably not, I would say. But I don't think that they're much further away, and I think the context is important.
So one other thing I wanted to mention here is that the Dallas Mavericks are sort of flying under the radar a little bit in terms of front office instability. Obviously, at the moment they've got Nico Harrison as the general manager there, or
the shoe guy,
or the Pobo. But like just before that, there was the whole. This time last year, there was the Hurl Bob Vulgaris sort of weird stuff going on there, and I think I looked it up before. He's like in charge of like some second div soccer club or some like random and second div in like Italy or something.
Really?
Something all over the
shop.
He's
in charge.
Yeah.
Must be nice to be like such a megalomaniac who is just like, well, I got kicked out of my basketball organization. Maybe I'll just fuck off to Italy and just like pick up.
Let me just get the actual thing. He is purchasing.
That's even better.
He's purchasing a Spanish soccer club.
What club?
Club Deportivo Castellon.
Oh. Deportivo Castellon.
Anyway, and then before that, there was obviously the Donnie Nelson stuff, and Donnie Nelson, who had done a great job at building a title contender,
and been there for forever,
and also finding good talent.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little bit
there's the fucking sexual harassment stuff going on with Mark Cuban, and also Kristaps Porzingis being accused of rape, and then the team still trading for him.
Yeah.
Funny how that just like went away. Yeah, organizational instability up the wazoo.
And Luka, he's signed his whatever Supermax extension. I think that probably kicks in this season. I think it was an extension. So 5 years to get a little bit of stability, and they've lost their second best player, which, you don't want to pay him $30 million, but it's not like they have $30 million to spend elsewhere.
Do you know something, Cooks?
Sure.
This is one of these stats that sounds like it's from the 1980s. One of those ones that's like, whoa, it was such a different time. Luka Doncic has played 4 seasons.
Yep.
And in those 4 seasons, he's won Rookie of the Year and been All-NBA First Team 3 times.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's insane. That is...
Bob Pettit.
That is like a borderline... It's a borderline Hall of Fame career before you've even signed your second contract.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that today because I'm writing an article at the moment about Karl Anthony Towns, just like how good he is. And he was an all-star in his 3rd season, and obviously 18 and 10 in his rookie year. And that's like, you got to, even though, pace is, really, really fastened up a little bit and offense is easier, that's still like very good numbers as a rookie. Yeah. But then, Luka is just like all NBA.
Yeah. Seriously.
In the MVP discussion. All right. Let's move on to the Denver Nuggets, who added via free agency Bruce Brown and DeAndre Jordan while trading for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Ish Smith. And they drafted Christian Braun.
Thanks for saying that properly. I really appreciate that.
So it is actually Brown.
No, but just because...
No, it's not, but it is. You know what I mean?
Just because it's been...
No, he wants to be called Brown.
No, I know, but all I'm saying is that I know better than him, and his name is Braun.
I'm not gaslighting you, you're just crazy.
No, it just... don't that's so annoying, because I think what has happened is that his family has emigrated from Central Europe however long ago, and their name is Braun, which is a Germanic name, Braun, spelled the exact same way, and they've moved to buttfuck nowhere, USA, and the people there have been like, what's this name? And they've just acquiesced and decided that it's called Brown. Which is like, no, hold on to your cultural heritage, you know? Make them learn to say your name. Don't change what your name is for them. Anyway,
Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Ismail Kamagate, and they re-signed Nikola Jokic to the richest NBA contract. He's Supermax, 2-time MVP, deserves every dollar of that. They also picked up Jack White from Bendigo.
Oh,
Jack White is
pickup.
he entered Summer League with that whole entire roster, most of them trying to make that final two-way roster spot, and Jack White won it, which is pretty cool. To do this, they gave up Will Barton, Bryn Forbes, Jermichael Green, Monty Morris, and Austin Rivers. They have pending free agents in DeMarcus Cousins and Marcus Howard, but their roster is full, so they won't be re-signing anyone. I've given them a B because they have the core there. Sorry, just burping up one of the two fizzy drinks. They have the core there of the big three, and Aaron Gordon is definitely a part of the team there, and he's very much part of the core while not being the big three. And they literally just needed a 3-and-D wing. And I wrote a couple of articles leading up to it saying, how can they get them? Like trade, free agency, like how do they get this 3-and-D wing? And KCP might have been like the best case scenario, and they got him. And like the cost was Monty Morris. And you can give up that asset being Monty Morris because Bones Hyland has burst onto the scene. So I've given them a good grade there for getting a guy who fixes all their problems. They had minimal resources to get that player, which 3-and-D wings are hard to get. They extended him. I think it was like 3 for $40 or something like that. That's
which
fine.
Which is so reasonable.
So reasonable. They signed Bruce Brown to. They had access to the full mid-level exception when they signed him. And then they just gave him half of it, which is like, fuck, poor Bruce Brown. I'm sure you could ask for more money, but they've got him on a 2-year deal there. All great depth pieces, all incredible moves, addressing 3-and-D wings. Bruce Brown gives them versatility all over the court, no matter what they want to do. And obviously they've got the two forwards, which can play all over the shop. So Bruce Brown's definitely going to help with some lineup versatility there. But they fucking signed DeAndre Jordan, who's been like one of the worst rotation players for the past 2 years. They signed him on day one. DeMarcus Cousins is still a free agent. I think he's just going to sign a minimum if he signs anywhere. He's better than DeAndre Jordan today.
Yeah, but they're both shit.
But DeMarcus Cousins is actually like a fine backup. DeAndre Jordan isn't a good backup. DeMarcus Cousins had some good rim protecting numbers last season, and he was like, he had one good playoff game, and really, because Jokic is going to play 45 minutes in the playoffs, you don't need him for the playoffs.
But you do need... I'll take your word for it about Boogie's rim protecting numbers.
Yeah.
But you do also need a backup centre for 15 minutes
in the regular season. Yeah, 100%.
And not in a significant span of time. Maybe Gordon plays some small ball 5 minutes there, so you only need 10 minutes. But 10 minutes over 80 games, that's 800 minutes.
Yeah, Michael Malone doesn't like playing AJ at the 5. They still have Zeke Naji, who they drafted 3 seasons ago, who could be, a 3-and-D sort of stretch 5. Bit undersized, but we'll have to see. And he hasn't really had the run yet to actually prove that he can play either at the 5 or on an NBA court. So, look, if Zeke Naji can play the 5, this off-season's an A+, and DeAndre Jordan's there for chemistry reasons. If Zeke Naji, which he hasn't shown yet, can't play the 5, then, I've stuck with a B.
Pretty good if you're quibbling on the lack of a backup centre, though, being the differentiator between an A and a B.
Well, they've only got so much to do. They've only got so much to do being a team that's so cramped. Also, they're paying the tax for the first time in a long time. So, given this could be an A+ if they just signed maybe a different minute. If they had signed Bismack Biyombo to the minimum, it's an A+.
Well, we'll talk about that.
But no, they got DJ. So what have you given them?
I've given them a C+, mostly because I find it hard to get very excited about the things that they've done. Like KCP, love it. I also think the addition of the subtraction of Monty Morris is less pressing this season with Jamal Murray coming back. I think you can kind of, between him, Bones, Jokic and Gordon,
Ish Smith is still there.
Yeah, Ish Smith, you can kind of cobble together what Monty Morris would have given you. And KCP is a huge upgrade over Barton.
Yeah.
So I really like that. Brown will be really fun. I'm interested to see how that works offensively with he and Jokic. I'm sure that there's going to be lots of fun things cooking up.
100%.
Which will be really exciting. So I think overall, like for the off-season move, I've given them a C+. But this team's biggest, additions this season are the two injured stars coming back, MPJ and Murray coming back. Like anything else is just tinkering around the edges that is going to be ancillary to their success this season, essentially. Because if they're really fucking good, they're going to be really fucking good because the big three is really fucking good.
Yeah.
So,
what are your thoughts on a team in Denver's position being a title contender with not many roster spots and like very minimal moves meaning a lot? What are your thoughts on them picking up another draft pick, being the 30th pick, drafting a prospect in Peyton Watson? And look, if Christian BRAUN can do anything, like that's found money. But what are your thoughts on a title contender actually going out of their way to get two rookies?
Well, if you've evaluated that you think you can get value from someone at 30, you think that they're higher on your draft board, or you have the coaching and development skills to really get the most out of that player, then do it, because the price to acquire the 30th pick is not high, and future assets that you're giving up are not the assets that will be used in, hypothetically, a superstar trade, or to bring in even someone like an Aaron Gordon level.
Plus, they've already done it as well.
Yeah,
so
but even in terms of like just conceptually hamstringing yourself for future moves, like the picks the picks that we're talking about here are not going to be the things that like get a deal across the line, or like someone's like, nope, I'm not doing it without your 2024 pick. That's going to be the 30th overall. Like that's just not really how it works. So if you like a bloke, get him in there.
Also,
the evaluation of the players themselves. I'm not grinding the Peyton Watson tape, so I can't really say.
You can read my article on nuglove.com looking about his short and long-term future.
Wow.
Also, just two massive additions to the Dream Blunt rotation, Bruce Brown and Nikola Jokic being on the same team is pretty cool.
Why do you say that?
I reckon they must be good fun. Bruce Brown seems like a nice guy.
Jokic is guaranteed good fun. Bruce Brown seems like a nice guy, but there's plenty of nice guys around. And you know what they say about nice guys? Finish last.
All right, the Golden State. The Golden State Warriors.
Well, look at these, we got two teams back to back. Fuck, I love the alphabet.
Yeah, we have a laugh. So yeah, we're gonna go fucking team record order next time, which still might get me in trouble.
Yeah, we might still.
Golden State Warriors signed Dante De Vincenzo to the taxpayer MLE. They drafted Patrick Baldwin Jr., Ryan Rollins, and G. Santos.
Didn't we end up deciding that it was
we can't talk about it for 3 episodes in a row. He wasn't even in the other conference.
The last episode we talked about wasn't on your feed though.
Yeah, but if you're listening to the expanded universe, you would have listened to everything. So,
but it's got to be Gee.
It is.
It's got to be Gee.
Gee like and butter. Clarified.
Seriously,
cough.
Seriously, that YouTube guy, some fucking nerve.
Yeah.
For the YouTube name pronunciation guy to put the same name up with 2 different pronunciations, and in one of them say, it's pretty simple once you get your mouth around it. Shut up.
They re-signed Kevon Looney to 3 for $25.5. They lost Damian Lee, Gary Payton II, Otto Porter Jr., and JTA. They have yet to re-sign Nemanja Bjelica, Chris Chorizo, Andre Iguodala, or Kunderi Weatherspoon. So if Iggy does come back, then Kunderi Weatherspoon's on a 2-way. If Iggy doesn't come back and decides to be coach, then Kunderi Weatherspoon gets that final actual roster spot. That's been loosely reported, but obviously you can't report it until it's actually happened. I've given them a C here because while I understand the fact that you can't re-sign Gary Payton to the money that he was getting, just for tax reasons, which you don't want to talk about, but this is getting like the biggest tax bill in NBA history for like the 4th season.
Well, also, what would his $28 million contract have cost?
It was like
tax
70,
money?
70.
Like it's a bit ridiculous.
But that still factors into winning an NBA championship. So I'm going to dock them there. Dante De Vincenzo. The thing with like getting one of these buy low guys on the taxpayer MLE is like, if everything goes right.
Less.
Yeah, was it less?
It's $9 million over 2 years. That's like $1 million over the minimum.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
Like he's essentially free.
Good signing.
Yeah, good
signing. So that's why and the fact that we lost Otto Porter Jr., who like might be the best sort of big man for Golden State's system. Obviously, he wanted to cash out because he hadn't made enough money off Washington's poor decisions.
The $125 million contract.
So, I completely understand why they let these guys go and so on, but generally I've given them an F for letting these guys go. And then just the major signing of Dante has just, buffed them back up to an average mark. But I understand why it happened. It's just not conducive to winning a title. But, factors outside of basketball played into it. What have you done?
What have I done? Let me just open the tab up.
You've done a C+.
Yeah, I've gone a C+. De Vincenzo is a great fit, great value, like we just talked about. But he's been hampered by injuries the last 2 seasons. Like, he essentially hasn't played consistently. And the reason why he's available like this is because Milwaukee decided this guy is probably not better than Grayson Allen. We don't want to pay him more than Grayson Allen. Whether that evaluation was right or wrong remains to be seen, but Milwaukee had the ample time to make that evaluation and decided to do that. And then Sacramento, who had wanted to trade for him a year previously, finally traded for him, had him for 2 months, and then decided we're not even going to fucking tender you.
No, there was because remember how there was a report where he was pissed off at Sacramento for not starting him, so he doesn't meet the starter criteria, so he can't sign the 125% on top of his deal.
Yeah.
So I think there was some like goodwill from the front office there, just letting him go elsewhere.
Okay, well, I don't know how much they could have offered him, but it's definitely more than $4.5 million.
Yeah, it is.
Probably substantially more than $4.5 million. And if they had valued him to the point where they're like, this guy's an important part of our team, then they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So either.
But it sounds like you and I are both high enough on him to be like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, if he's healthy, he's a really good player. And I think, now, don't crucify me here, but I think that there's a little bit of room for him to slot into Gary Payton's role, because he's not as big, he's not as good of a defender, but he's still a really good point of attack defender. And if we're in the playoffs and we're in a situation again where Jordan Poole is a terrible defender and he's just getting targeted every time, could see this guy closing some games next to Clay and Steph.
Yeah.
Just like you're playing Portland in the first round of the playoffs. Throw him out there for the last 8 minutes and say, God damn. He's someone who could do that and do a reasonably good job. So I think he's a really good ad. And I'm not going to dock them for losing these guys, because literally the plan is to let Moses Moody and Kuminga and Big Jim take the
big
role.
three.
Like that's like you're kind of doing it wrong if you're paying $70 million so that you can bring a role player in that's going to block your draft investment. That's like you literally can't do both and get value out of either, because if Kuminga is taking some of Peyton's minutes, then you're not getting value for money for Peyton, and if Peyton's taking Kuminga's minutes, vice versa.
Yeah, especially with Otto Porter Jr. and Kuminga being the exact same person.
Yeah, well, and Moses Moody again is not the defensive player that Peyton is, but they're both guards,
and he could be.
Yeah, they're both playing the same minutes. Yeah. So I've given them a C+. I think that they've done some good stuff, and I can't dock them for losing their role players, even though like they were undoubtedly really important in helping them win a chip nary 6 weeks ago.
That is wild. So the next team are the Houston Rockets, who lost everything in the Christian Wood trade. Not going to name it. They drafted. They gained everything in the Christian Wood trade and still not going to name it. They drafted Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, and Ty Washington. Thank you. And they re-signed Jay Sean Tate to 3 for $22.1. I don't know why the contract was reported and not rounded down, but this was the only one that was specifically 22.1. So congratulations, Jay Sean. Good money if you can get it. They lost John Wall and Christian Wood, obviously waiving the former. And still haven't re-signed Dennis Schroeder, and he hasn't actually signed anywhere. I think they really liked it. There was some happy articles down the end of the season where it was like, hey, we don't have a fucking point guard. So they actually really liked having Dennis Schroeder, who could just like get into the paint and start something for a team with absolutely no offensive consistency whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, that would be alright, but,
they can also just give him $12 million when someone else is going to say, you're probably worth 6.
Yeah. And also, Ty Washington's looked good in Summer League, so maybe he can do that himself.
Well, if there's one thing we know about Summer League, it's that it always translates.
So I've given them a B+ here. I mean, like
huge. Love the optimism.
The picks are all good. I think Jabari is the worst of the big three, but they're the third pick, so you're probably going to get the last one remaining. by all accounts, they tried to trade up and tried to do everything they could. It was like, fair enough. It's hard to trade for the number 1 overall pick. Jay Sean Tate is going to be hugely positive value on that contract. I think he's like 28, 29. But if you're a contender and you want a 3-and-D forward,
no way he's that old.
Yeah, he spent a bit of time in Brisbane.
Wasn't it Sydney?
Yeah, close enough.
1995. I'm in 1997, and I'm 24. So he's 20. He turned 20. He's turning 27 in October.
Yeah, that's
how I do maths. I can't do maths unless I can personally relate it to my own life.
So I think that's a very tradable contract for anyone who just wants a 3-and-D forward on the cheap.
Or just fucking keep him because he's a sick cunt.
Yeah, or just do that and it really helps your team. But look, at first the Christian Wood trade seemed a little bit cheap, and maybe it was, but like, are you really going to get a lottery pick for a guy who hasn't been excellent on a tanking team and has got some chemistry concerns?
Hasn't been good.
So, look, I think the fact that they're able to just get a first round pick there, and just replenish the young talent, that's going to be a bit of a theme for this Western Conference. So, what have you done here for Houston Rockets?
I've gone to B, because I just kind of feel like drafting Jabari Smith, like, cool, good job. You took the third best player at number 3. Like, I'm not going to give you any credit for that. Like, you just kind of did what you're expected to do. I really do like that they've added 2 other rookies as well. That's the second time in the last 2 drafts that they've had 3 first round picks, which, like, if 3 of those guys overall hit, like, you're fucking serious. All of a sudden, you know, if you get Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, and one of the more peripheral first rounders that are, like, fucking really good.
A lot of bites at the apple.
We're cooking with gas here. And you know, I'm kind of at a bit of a loss for what else to say, because this kind of is exactly how their vision has been telegraphed. Like, they're now kind of like, it's playing out in the exact way that you would think it is, and this is the exact way that you should continue, because unlike Oklahoma City, they don't have like 1 million draft picks, and they gave away a lot of draft picks when they traded for Russell Westbrook. That's a theme for some teams, isn't it? Trading draft picks for Russell Westbrook and it not working out. Obviously, they recruited some from Brooklyn when they traded Harden, but they're still, you know, not sitting on like an absolute war chest. So finding a way to still bring in young talent and just kind of say, look, see what works, see what doesn't. I like it. It's a B for me.
So moving on from the team that waived John Wall to the team that signed him, we've got the LA Clippers, who signed John Wall. Drafted Moussa Diabate with the 43rd overall pick.
Interested to hear your thoughts on Moussa Diabate.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I think I've got maybe 10 minutes there. And they re-signed Nick Batum and Amir Coffey, Hot Coffee. They lost Isaiah Hartenstein, and free agents of note are Semi Ojeleye and Rodney Hood. I've given them a B+ here, because just sort of happy that they're willing to spend. Obviously, Nick Batum, we didn't think he was going to be worth this contract, and we didn't think he would be the sort of dude to opt out of his taxpayer MLA and re-sign for more money, but here we are.
We have, maybe not so much over the last 18 months, done this, but we did a lot of reflecting in the first 18 months of this podcast and the first 18 months of the Batumaissance. But it's pretty fucking crazy that he signed for $25 million a year when that meant something. From Portland to Charlotte.
Yeah.
And went from being a bloke who recorded one of the only 5x5s in NBA history to being quite literally one of the worst players in the NBA. Being quite literally paid like one of the best players in the NBA. And then all the Clippers did that offseason was bring in Nick Batum. And we were like, these dickheads. And he's turned into the Nick Batum of the Clippers. Like, that's fucking insane. Like, what's happened here? Like, he magically got the spark back, or was he just playing it cool, keeping it on ice for 2 years, and he's like, I'm just going to get
more than 2 years,
$50 million over the last 2 years of my contract.
Pretty good.
And then rock up and be good at basketball again.
You want 3D wings, and you want lots of versatility on defense. They've got Kawhi, Paul George, Nick Batum, Robert Covington, Amir Coffey, and I've probably left some players out there. Like that's a pretty
Don't
good.
sleep on Brandon Boston.
That's a pretty good wing rotation.
No, it's just cooked though. Like seriously.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously being a team like the Clippers who don't have much wiggle room to actually do anything in the off season, getting John Wall for the taxpayer MLE is awesome. If he helps at all in the playoffs, that's great. Because Reggie Jackson didn't shoot the ball too well last season, despite shooting the ball a lot.
Did I miss some
trivia?
Some trivia in the GC
You did,
the other
you
day
did.
where Reggie Jackson's one of the least efficient jump shooters or scorers.
There's 46 players who have taken at least 1,000 shots
Last season,
and he was the least efficient one. And then there was
Reggie Jackson took 1,000 shots last season. It's a lot of shots.
Yeah. So there's Reggie Jackson going upwards, Cade Cunningham, RJ, Julius Randle, Russell Westbrook.
RJ, max him out.
Rowan.
Yeah, max him out. That's what I say.
And obviously I'm hugely high on Isaiah Hartenstein, but
Hugely high, save for the weekend, man.
look, he just got paid somewhere else.
That's your boy.
I've stuck my tent pole on this one.
In 18 months, he's going to be traded to the Denver Nuggets to be the backup for Jokic. And
he was on Denver as the backup for Jokic. He didn't do a good
Sean
job.
Carroll circle will be complete. I've gone B plus as well. It's very unlike me, I feel like. But I really fucking like the John Wall addition.
A lot of good vibes, despite not doing anything.
He's literally done nothing for 3 years, and now he's been added, and I'm like, yes. And you know what the best part about it is? When they added Reggie Jackson, they signed him to a 1-year deal, and he came in, and he played really well for them, played really well in the playoffs. He was their second best player, yada, yada, yada. And then he cried and said, this team took me in and paid me millions of dollars when no one else would. And it was like very much touching, but also very much like, whoa. You're talking about like you had no options. You're getting paid. You're still getting paid $20 million by Detroit to go and play for the Clippers. Anyway, just like another window into like the NBA players. They're nothing like us. What happened next? They had to sign him to a bigger contract. Yeah. They signed him to a minimum, and all of a sudden you're paying him $11 million per season. John Wall is locked up on 2 years, 13, so you're paying him taxpayer MLE for
1 year. Probably a player option.
I don't think it's a player option. I think it's a straight 2. So if John Wall's sick your first year, you still got John Wall for $6.5 million next year.
Yeah.
And this team has been, crying out for a point guard who can do the things that John Wall can do. Like he is one of the best playmakers of his generation. That's gotten lost in the shuffle. But this guy is a walking 9 assists, and they're not fake assists either. Like some gentlemen like to serve up. He's pushing the pace, which is another thing that this team doesn't do. They don't run, but he also is like a premier drive and kick type operator. So if this ends up being good, then this team could be 60 wins easy. And if it ends up being bad, well, you're paying him $6 million. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So I've gone B plus. I'm really bullish on the Clippers this season. When we do our predictions or whatever that is that we do every single year that I've now forgotten the name of.
Predictions, I think, is right.
No, we do the over-unders.
Over-unders.
When we do the over-unders, I'm hitting the over.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, listeners, I'm telling you right now, whatever the number is, I'm going over on the Clippers.
You're looking at the dude who picked the Clippers to win the title and Kawhi to win MVP.
Yeah.
I'm going over in the Clippers. So the next team, LA Lakers, they added Troy Brown Jr., Thomas Bryant, Damian Jones, JTA, Lonnie Walker the fourth on the taxpayer MLE, and they drafted Max Christie, who I've seen way too much on Twitter.
Who is that?
No, just some dude. You know when the Lakers get anyone,
he's
white? Just all over. I believe so.
No, he's not.
Oh. There you go. I haven't seen him enough on Twitter.
Cormac Carl Max Christie.
They lost...
His name is Cormac. That's sick.
They lost Malik Monk, and free agents they haven't re-signed are Melo, Trevor Ariza, DJ Augustine, Kent Bazemore, Avery Bradley, Seiko Demboya. Man, I wish he turned out. Wayne Ellington and Dwight Howard.
You know what I love about Max Christie?
What?
Ask me what number it starts with.
What, in summer league?
Nah, in college.
What?
You don't want to know.
2,
Nah.
3.
That's a 3. They're both 3.
Every time you're always like, guess what number I started with? I'm like, oh, this must be bad, but it's always a 3.
No, but there's a gradient of 3. Like not all 3s are equal. Some 3s are worse than other 3s.
Of course.
You know.
Yeah, there,
I'll tell you
there
what,
might be 100 numbers next
I'll
to
tell
3.
you. Well, I'll tell you the numbers then. You can make your own decision. It's 38 and 31.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. His second round pick.
This is more of a conceptual conversation, but the only possible way that it's starting with a 3, if you're a guard, is passable, is if you're a Devontae Graham type operator, where both of them are like 38. You shoot 38 from the field because you shoot so many 3s on such a high volume, and you're actually pretty good at it.
And you don't take layups.
Yeah. If you're shooting in the 3s from the field and you're not a great 3-point shooter, I'm not getting into business with you. Anyway, Max Christie, 45th overall, we'll see. But his name's Cormac, which is pretty sick.
So Lakers, I've given them a B just because, there's obviously heaps of talks about trades, whether that be...
Can I just interrupt you again?
Yeah.
This is from si.com/Lakers/news from 3 days ago. LA exec admits draft pick Max Christie is a long-term project. Cool. Nice.
It's... Yeah.
Hold on.
I like
Hold on, just let me Google LeBron James' age. Oh, he's old as fuck.
But maybe you'll still be around when that long-term project comes around.
Yeah, maybe.
Was he 2 years away from being 2 years away?
Max Christie?
No, LeBron.
Yeah, we call him 37. LeBron's... He's born on the 30th of December.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
That
means he's a Capricorn. Capricorns, very hardworking. Makes sense.
Chris Bosh is... Are you a fucking rock crystal girl?
Oh, you never know.
Really?
It's nice to know. No, it comes in handy sometimes.
Oh, you're a fucking sleaze. It's like you're posting on your Instagram story like, damn, Rofi weight sucks. And then just seeing that little red dot show up in the messages.
Is that an insight into your brain rather than my brain?
Nah, insight into my friend's brain.
You're
who
April.
Too openly told me
April?
that. I'm born in February. Same day as Chris Bosh.
Same as Chris Bosh. February
13th.
Friday
Friday the 13th.
Which means you're an
dinosaur.
You are a Pisces.
News to me.
Hold on. February. Zodiac sign, there we go. Pisces, you're an Aquarius. Oh, you do strike me as a bit of an Aquarius, actually.
I actually don't give a fuck.
I don't even know what that means, but I've always thought that about you.
Yeah, no worries.
Anyway, I want to apologise formally for my consistent derailing of the Lakers segment. Have you gotten to your grade yet?
Yeah, honestly, if you're going to do it Lakers. We all know what they did. They replaced old role players with young role players who there's a reason that they were available for the minimum. And
definitely reasons.
I didn't think that a Russell Westbrook trade was on the cards. So I've given them a B because really they just brought back the band, but the band just happens to be 10 years younger. So if one of them hits, awesome. They're going to fucking leave in free agency a year from now.
I've given them a C, and I've written in the notes, they're in a holding pattern from last season, which is a pretty stinky holding pattern. So, for a team that had very identifiable flaws, they haven't actually done a lot to address those flaws necessarily. And also, I guess a Westbrook trade wasn't on the cards, but at the same time, looking at the scope of a team to address its own problems, Russell Westbrook obviously is the problem. And they're in a worse spot with him now than they were 2 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, because of all of the shit that's gone on. Like the reporting around his exit interview was that it was cringeworthy. Like this grown NBA reporters reporting that it was cringeworthy, which says something. And then there's the whole stuff at Summer League, like LeBron and AD not saying hello to him. Like, there's obviously,
and his agent.
His agent split from him because he said his best. The agent thought that his best avenue was to seek a trade or take a buyout.
No. The agent said, listen to Darvin Ham.
Yeah.
That's what he said first.
Yeah. The agent, and apparently he's not willing to accept the support that has been publicly offered and come back and like embrace a different role because he's Russell Westbrook. So not only do you have the worst contract in the NBA still, you have not that good of a... Like, is he a top 20 point guard? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Washington's got 2 point guards.
Would you rather have Jalen Brunson or Russell Westbrook?
Jalen Brunson.
Would you rather have...
Jalen Brunson. Yeah, Monty Morris.
Yeah, Monty Morris. You'd rather have Monty Morris?
Yeah.
Well, then that's a fucking problem because Monty Morris gets paid $8 million a year. Russell Westbrook gets $50 million a year. Anyway, I just kind of think, like, what's the... I don't know, like... Their hands are tied, yes, but then what's the point of this whole endeavor if your hands are just going to be tied? Like,
I'm happy to move on. There's other podcasts that talk more about the Lakers.
Other podcasts right? like different episodes?
Literally
or?
Every other podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, every other channel.
Yeah, I got you.
Memphis Grizzlies, they traded for Danny Green. They drafted Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, Kennedy Chania, and Vince Williams, and they re-signed Ja Morant to a 4 for 226 with no player option. They lost Anthony Melton, Carl Anderson, and Jarrett Culver is still out there, potentially to dry. I
heard Guangdong's looking for a shooting guard.
Man, Dante's catchphrase. I've given them a C because obviously heading into this off-season, all the blog boys were super excited, being like, "Ooh, what's Memphis going to do? They've got so much flexibility. They've got all these future picks. They can either buy in and they'll say trade for Bradley Beal and be really good tomorrow, or they can push it back and maybe they'll throw an offer sheet at Miles Bridges, who we didn't know wasn't offer sheetable during those conversations. So there's been a lot of stuff talking about will they buy in now, will they push stuff into the future, and they very, very much push stuff into the future and said our window is 3-4 years from now, which is. Yeah, that's fair enough. It's not very fun. I don't really want to talk about that too much because, nothing crazy is happening. They did just draft a bunch of young dudes. So I've just given them a C. They are the definition of treading water, and that's so fine, but it doesn't push them towards a title today.
No, it doesn't. And I've given them a C+, although I will say that no player option... on Ja's deal is obviously a great piece of business to keep him there for the next little while, but at the same time that's going to be a cheap as fuck deal.
Yeah.
Within
the cap's going up, right?
It's a 193. I think it's a 5 for 193.
Really?
Yeah, 5 for 193, and then it will go up to 220 whatever with the
if he gets all
with the
NBA.
Supermax.
Yeah,
but that's still pretty fucking cheap. With the cap
it's
about
going to
go
be
up.
so cheap.
The cap is about to go up quite a bit. Apparently, the estimates are that it'll go up 10% every year for the next 5 years because they're not going to do when the new TV money comes in. They're not going to do a spike like 2016. They're going to smooth it and go even increments. So within 2 years, that's going to be one of the
below average
cheapest
max
all NBA level contracts you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And losing Melton hurts them right now. But they have parlayed that into David Roddy, thick boy David Roddy, which is not so much important for the player as it is for the contract because he's going to be on a cost-controlled rookie contract for the next 4 years, which allows them to clear Melton's cap hit, keep their cap sheet a little bit less cluttered for... whatever they want to do down the line. What do they need? They need a big wing. They need a good big wing. Is it going to be Zaire Williams? Probably not. Which wing is being dangled in KD trade discussions right now and tweeted out his displeasure at being involved and has been rumoured to test unrestricted free agency when he hits it in 2024 and would be available potentially in unrestricted free agency in 2024 or earlier if his team decides to cash out on him because he's indicated he's going to test free agency.
Yeah.
Ask me again.
It's Jaylen Brown.
It's Jaylen Brown.
Oh.
It's Jaylen Brown.
And that's why I've given him a C. They've got this opportunity right now, and they're just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, seriously.
Which is fun.
Which is good. Like,
Yeah.
If that kind of plays out and in 18 months Jaylen Brown's on your team, well, now you're cooking with gas.
Yeah. And especially because let's say the Jaylen Brown of this free agency class, Miles Bridges, obviously isn't available. So it's like...
Well, he's available. He's just an absolute piece of shit.
Yeah, he might be in jail.
Yeah.
And also, like, Ja Morant, he said that he one of the reasons why he wanted just the straight 5-year extension is because I'm committed to Memphis. Like, I want to be here, like, no matter what. Like, I'm not worried about a player option, opting out and leaving. Like, you know... Seems like Gordon Hayward's name gets thrown around way too much. He's not the only guy with a player option, but you know he doesn't want to be that guy who opts out and could leave a year earlier.
Yeah.
But there's such thing as a fucking extension. Like he could just get to that fourth year and extend.
But also, like, you could just have the option to opt out and opt in. Instead.
Yeah. Well, you could also opt out and extend. Like there's so Damian Lillard has pretty much never been I think he's never been a free agent in his whole entire life because while he keeps getting player options, he keeps extending before that player option comes, which automatically opts in.
Yeah.
All he's doing here is two pathways. He's either being a bit of a stupid cunt or he's actually like saving money and giving more money to the table to Memphis to sign free agents, which is incredible. If he wants to do that.
That's what it is?
Well, he hasn't said that, so it's like.
Why would he say that?
Well, James Harden said it. James Harden said it a week ago. He goes, "I'm taking. You know,
there's more
don't worry. You guys sign
there's
who?
more
I'll take
pressure
the
on
rest."
James Harden to do that though, because James Harden was A, shit last year, and B, his max number is going to start what number is it start? It's going to start with a 5,
yeah.
Which usually is pretty good if it starts with a 5. But in terms of millions of dollars, starting with a 5, that's a lot. Whereas Jars is going to start at, you know, the flat rate for 193. Let's do the maths. That's like a little bit less than 40 million average annual value. His number will probably start at like 33. And by the time he's in the 40s, the new money will be in, and the cap will be higher anyway. So Harden needs to say that because him getting paid $50 million a year to turn out like he was last year isn't going to look good. Whereas Ja, it's like, well, you just fucking obviously take whatever you want. I reckon he's been a bit of a silly bugger. Yeah. I like, maybe have a conversation with your agent about potentially. Although, you know what? Maybe his perspective is, at a minimum, I'm going to get paid almost $200 million to play basketball.
As opposed to 210.
In a place that I like. And at a maximum, I'm going to get paid slightly more than $200 million to play basketball in a place that I like.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? That's all that matters to me.
Well, actually,
which is a healthy perspective.
In that article I sent you about, I don't know if you read it, from the conversation about, like, you know, where do salaries meet happiness, and so it found that like 5 years ago, like the salary to reach happiness was like $54,000, and now fuck knows how they calculate this, but now that figure is $73,000.
Fucking inflation.
But they said that there are huge diminishing returns as soon as you hit that 73 point. From there, it's just like, you know, bigger things are happening. So Ja Morant is making more than $73,000 a year Australian. So maybe he's read that same article and goes, diminishing returns for that last 10 mil.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one more team before we take a break, because some of us need to go to the toilet. The Minnesota Timberwolves. They signed Kyle Anderson, Bryn Forbes, Austin Rivers, and they traded for Rudy Gobert. I don't know if you heard about that one. And they drafted Wendell Moore Jr., Josh Minott, and I'm going to let you say the 50th overall pick.
I'm going to let you say it.
No, please.
No. I'll say it, but I'm going to say it after you say it.
All right. Il sono Minnesota, questa il draft, Matteo Spangolo. Huh?
Almost perfect. But the GN is a ny, like a gnocchi. Spagnolo.
True.
Spagnolo.
What about Matteo? Yeah, Bono. Yeah. Friend of the program, Alessio Conte, doesn't laugh as much as I think he would laugh whenever I do a dumb Italian accent.
Do it.
Oh, yeah, I do it every now and again.
I'll laugh if you do it.
Well, I've just read your grade. They also...
You know what, just speaking of friend of the pod, he'll laugh when he hears this, but we played netball together last night, and we just couldn't kind of get on the same page. I was playing goal defense. He was playing goal attack. Usually, we're not separated so far on the court. We can go a bit more interplay, but the ability of a goal defense and a goal attack to interact is hampered somewhat.
Yeah.
And there are a few like. He's come to me and he's like, look, like their goal defense is like stepping up, like look for the lob over there, and I'm like, I'm gonna look for it, and then I kind of see something, but I don't like it, and I go somewhere else, and he's like, like that was there, like go for it, and then I tried it and it didn't come off. I threw a bad pass and took him like a little bit further away. Anyway, we kind of couldn't get on the same page. Like I said, I'm playing goal defense, so I'm kind of like running all over the place, playing defense, like slapping balls away, like intercepting passes, that sort of thing. And I sprint from one side of the court to the other side of the court, to the sideline, and I smack the ball out of bounds. They've tried to throw a lob, I run over and I just tap it out of bounds, like live to fight another day. And he yells out to me, "We've got the numbers, just tap that back in." And I was like, tap it back in, you reckon? Tap it back in. And I went up to him at a stoppage in play about 5 minutes later, and I was like, that was very hypercritical of you. I'm doing my best, trying to make plays for the team, and you're telling me, tap it back in. The nerve. Couldn't believe it.
Cozy. So this Minnesota team has gone from a fringe playoff team to a potential top 4 lock, in my eyes. I think...
You're going over? You've got in 6 weeks' time, you're going over?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Such me. So I'm definitely hitting the over, but the thing is, like, they've made their big trade. They've pushed all their chips in. They've given up 4 future drafts.
They've pushed their chips in and set them on
plus
fire.
Their last 3 drafts.
Yeah.
Which is like awesome. Who'd you get? Oh, it's a dude who historically is bad in the playoffs.
It's a guy who plays the same position as our best player.
Yeah, that too, right? So it's like they've done these things that make them a better team, but the exact guy struggles in the playoffs. Yeah. So it's like I'm grading this on a letter scale based on how close they're getting to an NBA championship. If I'm grading on how close they get to the number 1 seed, they might get an A+. But if I'm grading it in how close they get to a championship, bringing in Rudy Gobert doesn't do that. So I've gone B-. And what have you written?
I've written, fuck man, I don't even know. Because I'm thinking about it, and I went through that exact thought process that you did. Like, this makes them a better team. They'll potentially win. They'll most likely win in the high 40s at a very baseline. Potentially could be looking at a 50s, win total for next season. Yeah. But I don't think this team has any chance to come out of the West.
Yeah.
I don't even think this team has any chance to win 2 playoff series.
Yeah.
So I struggled to really average that out and say, where do those, like, what's the middle ground for those 2 things? Like, making yourself a better regular season team whilst not only not making yourself a better postseason team, but almost like hamstringing yourself, because I don't even think that Gobert gets exposed in the playoffs. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. What is the case is that you're going to want to play Cat 40 minutes a game, and that means you're going to have to play Gobert either less, in which case you're just burning dollars keeping him on the bench, or you play them both together at high leverage points in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this much now. A Western Conference playoff team that sees both Cat and Gobert out on the court in the last 5 minutes of a close game, they're gonna have something figured out for that. They're gonna be licking their chops. So I'm abstaining from giving this a letter grade, and I'm gonna submit my official grade as ambiguous vibes. I'm just not sure.
And the Kyle Anderson signing for, I can't remember if it was the taxpayer or the full MLA.
I think he was the full. I think he's on a 2 for 18 from memory.
A passing, shooting, slow dude at the 4 next to Cat is like, oh, okay, that's actually pretty interesting, because all of a sudden his shot matters less because Cat can shoot. But then they traded for Gobert, and it's like, well, he won't be good when he shares the court with Gobert. We know that.
Wait, can Jaden McDaniels shoot?
No, not really.
Yeah. Jeez. All of a sudden the numbers are not adding up. No, I know that he can't shoot. I'm more just saying.
No, I'm actually just wondering.
No, I reckon it's 32.
Holy shit, it's 31.7.
Yeah, fuck.
Alright, so B-, you've gone, I don't know. Let's take a break and regroup with some fresh cans.
The depth, the deep 2. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as two members of the four-man weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the Pack of Basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have two male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Wait, we should record this.
So, the cat's just meowing at the poo.
The cat's getting in the kitty litter, so...
We'll pick them back up again. Doing the second half of the Western Conference off-season grades. We'll start with the New Orleans Pelicans because they are next in the alphabet. What they did this off-season is re-sign Zion Williamson to his max. They drafted Dyson Daniels 8th overall, EJ Liddell 41st, and Carlo Matkovic with the 52nd pick.
Could be big.
Could be big.
Heard he was good in EuroLeague.
Could be big as in he might be a big man.
Yeah.
Actually, incredibly quiet. I didn't realise how quiet it was, but you and I had talked about this before the pod. It's like, yeah, they're paying a lot of money to CJ, Brandon Ingram,
He is a
JV.
big man. He's a power forward / centre.
How good. Yeah, quiet. They drafted the right players. C. What do you reckon?
I've gone C as well. Same reasons. There's also an emotional investment for me here. Like, I really want Dyson Daniels to be good.
Yeah.
Because I need another good Australian basketball player that's not a fuckwit to root for. Because 2 years ago, you're like Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle. It's like a golden age of good young Australian basketball players. Turns out they're both idiots.
It's called the Bronze Era.
Yeah, fucking hell. Well, you don't want to know what happened to Greece after the Bronze Era. Tell you what.
I actually have no idea.
What?
You know, my whole knowledge of the Bronze Era is literally contained in Civ 6.
Well, there's a sociographic concept
Holy
called
shit.
the Bronze Age collapse, which is the idea that for the time of the Bronze Age, just watching the cat do a poo, now scratching the wall. For the time of the Bronze Age, all of those cultures that were in the Bronze Age were very advanced. But they almost all collapsed at the same time.
Yeah.
And after that, there was like a real drop-off. It was like a real kind of like... what's like a basketball analogy that I can draw? It was like a real LeBron Cavs to non-LeBron Cavs. You know?
Yeah, of course.
So... Anyway, I can't remember what we were talking about. I want Dyson Daniels to be good at basketball, and I want him to also be a regular, normal bloke. The thing that I want to talk about with the Pelicans, though, is... So Zion's just signed straight up for the max, which obviously includes the Rose Rule protection that can... The Rose Rule stipulation that if he makes an All-NBA team, he can... if he makes an All-NBA team or wins Defensive Player of the Year, he can bump up to...
226?
I think it's 231.
Okay.
I think it's 231, which is mint. And 2 weeks before free agency started, David Griffin, he of the enigmatic NBA GMing, he was giving interviews saying like, of course we're going to be putting protections into Zion's deal because it's just a franchise trying to protect his best interests. We want him long term. He wants to be here long term, but we'd be silly if we didn't do that. Everyone's been talking for 2 years about a Joel Embiid style protections deal, and the protections that ended up going in have not even been reported on, other than Shams Charania saying that the protections included only kick in if Zion is waived.
Yeah.
So, guess what? If you're waiving Zion Williamson, things have gone very badly wrong. And the fact that you're not paying him any money in 26, 27 doesn't really mean anything. You know, or that you're paying him half of his salary in 26, 27, or 24, 25. Like, if you can only get financial reprieve in the absolute worst case scenario, like his career's fucking over, so you waive him.
Yeah.
Which is not going to happen. The far more realistic situation, which they should have built into this contract, is that he plays 35 games a season. And the protection should be, if you're not playing 40 games, then you forfeit half your salary.
Yeah, it's the same conversation we had with Michael Porter Jr. talking about his extension.
Exactly, and it happens in other
Sports.
leagues. It happens in the NFL. It happens in soccer. Like playing time stipulations are built into the contract. You can earn up to $193 million if you're playing 20 games a season for 2 seasons in a row. We're not paying you. We're not paying you $70 million or $80 million or $90 million combined. You know, and there's none of that. So it's a bit galling for David Griffin to kind of identify the need for the franchise to protect itself and then not do that. Because, like I said, if Zion Williamson's getting waived, well, this team's in the gutter anyway, so it doesn't fucking matter. Anyway, quiet off season. I gave him a C.
Alright, so the next team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. One thing I forgot to mention with Golden State is they actually
Golden
signed...
State, which was the third team that we talked about.
They actually signed Michael Green. Does that change your grade at all? No, fair enough. So OKC drafted Chet Holmgren, Ousmane Dieng, Jalen Williams.
How fuck did Michael Green end up on OKC anyway?
Denver traded
That's what they
Green
salary dumped him.
with the 2027 first round pick, which the protections aren't out yet for the 30th pick, which became Peyton Watson.
Yeah.
And they drafted Jalen Williams. They re-signed Lou Dort at 5 for 87.5. And this morning, they signed Chip England, who was going to retire after spending, 18 years with the San Antonio Spurs. But they've just signed him as an assistant coach, not a shooting specialist. And I'm sure he's getting a lot of money to be on this team. And this might be like the biggest addition of the whole entire offseason. Just bringing in a guy who is the shot doctor, shot whisperer, the guy who turned Kawhi Leonard into an MVP candidate. Just giving him to all these dudes. Not that any of these dudes have broken jump shots. We both think Josh Giddey could do without the knee clacking, but just getting a consistent batch of jump shots with every guy you draft. That's so good. So I've given them an A, but very, very easily could be talked into an A+. They've done nothing that puts them down from the biggest leap towards title contention. What have you done?
I've got an A+. And I feel the same way about this as I feel about Houston, where it's just nice to see the vision for the future ticking along exactly as you'd expect.
Yep.
But the reason why I'm so much more bullish on this offseason for them is because they're doing more with more. Love the picks. Holmgren, cool. Let's just fucking see what happens here. He looks good. Pick him, see if you can work it out. He's obviously a really talented basketball player. Jang is like the swing. It's like the who fucking knows. This guy has played 11 minutes a game in the French basketball league, and then
he played in Australia.
Yeah, true. He played for New Zealand Breakers.
New Zealand.
Yeah. Anyway, this guy has played not a lot of fucking
and he's
high level
6'10", and he's a 3.
Yeah, let's kind of see what we have here, and then with Jalen Williams. Can I interest anyone in the Jays? Cool. Let's just see what happens. You've got a.
I will say Jalen Williams looks really good. He's a really strong above
the 12th overall one, the guard or the forward?
The guard.
Yeah. He looks like he can provide a little bit of scoring punch, a little bit of kind of get inside, make things happen in summer league. Anyway, I like the positional flexibility in the guys they drafted. I like the skill set versatility because this is a team that has lots of complementary, lots of overlapping skill set. Just get a lot of guys in who can do different things and trust that your development and coaching team will be able to figure it all out. And I really like the Lou Dort contract. $87 million over 5 years. Let's do some quick maths. I reckon that's, let's just say ballpark $17 million a year.
Yeah.
Which is approaching Mikal Bridges territory. And Mikal Bridges is far better than Lou Dort. But the cap's going up, and in 2 seasons, this is going to be an absolute steal because not only is the cap going up, but Lou Dort's skill set is also going up.
Yeah.
And I think as more quality players come onto the roster and the pecking order and offensive structure starts to be more defined, he'll be asked to do less, and he'll gravitate more towards the 3-and-D shooting wing type role. There won't be so much of the let's let Lou Dort do a bit of this and a bit of that and kind of see what happens, because we kind of know what happens is that he's got a bit of Jeremy Grant about him where it's he'll do it, it's not necessarily great, you don't necessarily want that to be your offense. But we know exactly what he can do, what he can be elite at. And on this contract, he's just going to be asked to do that. And this contract is going to be really good value within a few years' time. Like, just great value for, like, your starting 2, your starting 3. Or
with every contract extension, because we know the cap's going to go up and up and up, every contract extension, you're looking at just how many years it is. And just the longer the years, you know the player's good. That's going to look good regardless.
But that's not always true, though, because, like, even considering the cap extension, like, Lou Dort, I'm extremely confident that he, in 2 years' time, will be settled in his role and will be well worth the money, regardless of if the cap goes up or not. Yeah. Someone like Jalen Brunson, I'm less certain about.
Yeah. But
the cap will go up and it will,
helps. You know?
Paying Jalen Brunson, $25 million a year won't look as bad when the cap goes up by an extra $15 million. Yeah, true. But there's scope even for those cap increases to not cover the negativity if the Jalen Brunson contract ends up being an albatross. Like, it'll still be an albatross. But I don't think that there's really much risk with that for Lou Dort, and he's the exact type of player that good playoff teams need to have. So I really like this offseason for OKC. I've given them an A+.
Isaiah Roby waived. Simply, they don't have the roster spots to keep dudes.
And they've got how many more picks coming in over the next...
Yeah. So sort of we're starting to see a little bit of there are too many players here.
There are actually limits on this.
Not that Isaiah Roby's a world beater, and like good on the Spurs, which we'll talk about first.
He's still hanging around.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Who's the dude with 3 names? Jeremiah Robinson now? Is that who you're going to say?
No.
Who?
Darius Bazley.
True. New Balance's very own. Let's move on to your Phoenix Suns, who in free agency added Damian Lee, Josh Okogie, and traded for Jock Landale. And they re-signed Devin Booker, Bismack Biyombo, and they matched the Indiana Pacers offer at 4 for $133 for 1 DeAndre Ayton. They lost Aaron Holiday, Frank the Tank, Frank the Tank, and JaVale McGee. If you had traded for Kevin Durant, I would have given you an A. But obviously, given where you are, being a team that is right up against the cap, you have little wiggle room. You're not going to make a major trade with any of your big pieces. It's like, what else can you do? So I've just given you a C just because you're treading water. You replace some of the role players. I think Damian Lee is a good player, as your 3rd, 4th guard. But just sort of, you didn't trade for KD. This is it. Cool.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like we have ultimately stood pat whilst the rest of the Western Conference has upgraded, or in the case of the Clippers and the Nuggets, have gotten their guys back. So I've given us a C-, despite spending this entire offseason repeatedly saying to anyone who will listen, including on this podcast and on the JVD podcast, that I just want the team to come back together. I want to bring Ayton back, and I just want to roll it out again next season and see what happens. That's ultimately the result that I'm getting, but it kind of feels weird because we took the worst possible route to get here.
Yeah.
And I think someone who obviously needs to be kept on task, like Ayton, and who obviously had issues with, be it the front office or the coaching staff or his teammates at the end of last season and through the off season, that actually hasn't been reported on a lot. We don't actually know what the problem was, which is strange for something that was so high profile and has continued to be high profile. We just know that there was a problem. If he's resentful to be back, he wanted to be in Indiana, he wanted to be anywhere else, and he's back. He's I took the money doesn't mean I'm happy about it. And he's not bought in. Him not bought in like he has been in the last 2 seasons is actually not what we really want.
Yeah.
So I think that it's an abstract, intangible thing. It's not a move, but I think that's probably the most important thing. What's his headspace like? The other thing as well is that I just was really hurt that we lost JaVale McGee. Because even though 3 years is a lot, I reckon he's going to give you 2 good years on that contract. 2 good years at the taxpayer mid-level, to be one of the best centers, the best backup centers in the league. Bismack Biyombo, we've re-signed on the minimum. He was really good last season when he played with Chris Paul. And exclusively when he played with Chris Paul. Because when he played with Chris Paul, he knows how to screen, and Chris Paul was essentially just telling him, I want you here. And he was just dunking everything.
Yeah.
When he doesn't play with Chris Paul, he's just Bismack Biyombo.
Yeah.
He's just Bismack Biyombo. And this season, we don't have a Frank the Tank. We don't have a Jalen Smith. Like, other guys who you can just kind of like throw in. Our third center is going to be Dario Saric, who's at this point like playing into his 30s and on
a torn ACL, repaired ACL. Yeah.
He's not a center. Like he's a defensively he's a 4.
Yeah.
So anyway, C-. I'm not actually feeling very buzzed or optimistic, but you know what?
Despite
it's like,
getting what you want.
This also is just who I am.
Yeah.
With basketball anyway. I am just very cautious.
Oh, is he? Are you sure? I haven't heard that one before.
You get that from my mum. So maybe the ship is like sailing straight, and this is just how I experience the ship that's sailing straight. I'm not really sure, but I'm not like buzzed.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Portland Trailblazers, who signed Gary Payton II. They traded for Jeremy Grant, and they drafted Shaden Sharp and Jabari Walker. They re-signed Anthony Summons to 4 for $100 and Yusuf Nurkic to 4 for $70. And they lost Eric Bledsoe and Joe Ingles. I've given them a B. And now, obviously, you and I weren't really enthused when we heard that they were going to be building around Damian Lillard. But I would say that in terms of, like, if this is the route that they were going to go down, this might be the best possible scenario. Like, they get Jeremy Grant, they don't have to go up the 7th pick, which is crazy that was in some mock trades, because it's very valuable for a guy who's only got 1 year left on his deal. Like, they got Jeremy Grant for not much. They brought back their guys, which it sort of seems like these guys were coming back when they agreed to rest since halfway through the season in Nurk and Simons. And look, I don't love Gary Payton's fit there, but at least they got a guy who is a very good perimeter defender and has played on a successful team. It's just like the process is wrong. Like, retooling around Dame isn't the way you win an NBA championship, but if they have to do it, this is fine.
Well, also not. Yeah, I mean, like Dame, who last season wasn't Dame. Like, he was a much reduced version of himself. So it's not even like you're retooling around a 31-year-old All-NBA point guard.
Yeah,
it's like, how many more seasons can he do this? It's like there's actually the possibility that this guy got a serious injury and didn't manage to play through it well at all, and either the poor play or the serious injury will reoccur. Like, that's not an impossibility here. I've gone C because I completely agree with you. The process is all wrong. I've written here deck chairs, Titanic, something. Like, re-signing Nurk, okay, I guess, but he's been like probably a below average starting center the last 18 months. So paying him $17 million a year is essentially what he was on before. So you'd look at that and say $17 million a year on a much greater, it's a much lower percentage of the cap. Like, what a great deal that is here. But his play has also diminished over the last, 18 months. Yeah, mostly due to injury.
They also need a starting center. Like, if they don't use this money, they're gonna get a minimum center.
Yeah, no, of course, like, and he's not a complete train wreck, but he's just not the guy that we had seen in the past.
Yeah, who you fell in love with.
Yeah, well, seriously, he was a top 5 center for 2 years there. He was really fucking good. Another thing that I don't love is drafting a guy who the highest level that he's played at is high school basketball. Shaden Sharp didn't play college. He also didn't go to the G League. He also didn't go overseas. He just redshirted and was around the team. Although he wasn't actually training, he was working. To his own words, he's working on his body, trying to get NBA ready. Cool. Yeah. You know who else didn't play college basketball?
You.
Well, I had a few offers on the table, but nothing really.
A few mid-majors.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
And he came into the league looking like a fucking bloke who'd never played college basketball. He played 3 games, and he looked like it. If Shaden Sharp looks like it, what use is that? If this guy isn't going to be a productive NBA player till his 3rd season when Dame's 35, well, Well, it's like the Lakers drafting Cormac, Carl, Max Christie.
Yeah.
What does that do for me in the time period that I'm trying to be good? It does nothing. Another player who took a while to develop into the player that he was and didn't play basketball with the exact same team, the exact same college, way back when, 2011, Enes Kanter. He went 3rd overall. He didn't play. He did the red shirt thing that Shaden Sharp did. And he was like not a good NBA player for like a few seasons in Utah.
And some might argue he never was, but that's unrelated.
Sorry, I should have said Enes Freedom. I just worry that by the time Shaden Sharp is good, if he does end up being good, like it won't really matter for Portland.
Yeah.
And the final thing that I don't love, and I'm talking myself into making this a C- rather than a C. Yeah, you got Jeremy Grant, and it was great value. You got him in for far less than what he was being talked about 6 months before, 12 months before, 18 months before. That's great. But this team needs him to be the Detroit version of himself, which is not an optimized version of himself.
The first 6 months of Detroit version.
Asking him to do what they're going to have to ask him to do, which is to be the primary wing playmaker, initiator, scorer. Like, we've seen how that works. He shoots 41% from the field. Like, that's what he does.
Yeah.
He also is a diminished defensive player because he's spending so much effort. He's spending so much effort on the offensive end, and you might say, well, most of the playmaking is going to come from Ant Simons and Dame, which is true. But teams that are really, really good need initiation and scoring punch from the wing. So he's going to have to do that at some point. If this team's good, he's going to have to do that in the playoffs. And unfortunately, teams where their best wing shoots 41% in the playoffs don't actually go very far.
I've just gone with a B just because I think this team's going to win in the mid-50s at a best-case scenario.
You think mid-50s?
Because Dame...
I just don't think that.
Before,
I think this team...
last season, was an All-NBA second-team
I think
player.
this team is like... We could be talking about them like 7 or 8. I really think this is a play-in level team.
Maybe even like Lakers this past season. Where
I'd be surprised if they weren't in play-in. Like, I don't think that there's like an 11 seed here. I think that there's a 6 to 10, but like, 6 to 10 sounds reasonable to me, but 6 to 10, you're talking about maxing at 50.
Yeah, it's like New Orleans last year with no Zion and half a season of CJ. But Dame should be good. Like, he had an injury, and the year before he was second team All NBA. Like, that's such a good player to build around.
And the team that he was second team All NBA on was better than what this team was.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Who's the 3 on that team?
Fucking probably Mo Harkless.
I feel like he's on every.
No, we had a better version of Nurk. We had CJ.
Zach Collins. Yeah.
I'm just kind of not infused.
Alright, so the Sacramento Kings signed Malik Monk, they traded for Kevin Huerter, and they drafted Keegan Murray with the 4th overall pick. They lost Dante De Vincenzo, which we've already talked about, Mo Harkless, which we've also already talked about, Justin Holiday, which we talked about, his brother, and Damian Jones, which we talked about in the Lakers section. Let's just move on. Free agents to note are Jeremy Lamb. So I've given them a C+, because Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and Malik Monk are upgrades on the talent they had last season. It's just not that much. They're more watchable. I guess they're a teeny tiny bit closer to a title, but you very much just want the 8th seed here, and I think they're closer to the 8th seed than they were before.
The 8th seed would be banners hanging. The question that I would ask about all of those guys, and I would exclude Murray from this because we just don't know, but they needed quality defensive players from last season. Because they're
all offense,
their bookends, their point guard and their center, terrible. Harry Barnes, great, but he's also 32 years old, so we'll see about that. Malik Monk, not known for his defense.
Yeah.
Kevin Huerter, he's big, he can move his feet on the perimeter. He's probably a good defender. Doesn't he move the needle that much? I'm not sure. This team will be like, they've added good players, like all those guys that they've just been talking about are like good players and will help this team be fun offensively. Like, they will, I'd imagine, have a top, let's say
20?
12 probably a top 12 offense. Like, I don't think that's, I reckon, I don't think that's out of the question.
You're higher on Domas than I, aren't you? Like, you like him more than I do.
I don't love him offensively. I do like the hub elbow center. That's kind of maybe why I like Nurk so much back in the day. If you can, like, you know, just operate at the elbow and find your own shot and also find your own teammates anywhere on the court, operate as a screen or operate at the DHO, I think that that's really valuable offensively, and that's a really good fulcrum to build your offense around. And there's no doubt that the Kings have quality offensive players who can fill the roles that you need around a center like that. It's just that none of these blokes can defend.
Yeah.
No one can defend. Maybe Mike Brown's going to make them magically change their basketball DNA.
Yeah.
I've given them a B because they have gotten better. They just haven't gotten better in the ways they need to. And unfortunately, in a twisted way, I'm just excited to see what novel ways this team can find to fail. Because despite all of this, like, this team just never succeeds. And whatever their benchmark for success is, they never succeed. It's not even an objective league-wide thing. Like, they haven't made the playoffs for X amount of seasons. It's like they set themselves a goal every year and they fail spectacularly.
And they so loudly set themselves that goal.
Yeah, so I just think that there's no way that this team succeeds at their goal, which is probably 8, right? I think there's no way this team is 8. I think that this team is like a 9 through 12.
Yeah. Alright, speaking of 9 through 12, the San Antonio Spurs...
No, I think that's optimistic.
who signed Isaiah Roby, and they drafted Jeremy Sochan, Malachi Branham, and Blake Wesley. They are 3 first-round picks, which
Jeremy
is very
Sochan's
nice.
Famously Polish.
Famously the international man of mystery, according to the Ringer. I'm not even going to say the Hawks dudes. They traded away DeJounte Murray, and I
born in Oklahoma, by the way, so he's not that much of an international man of mystery.
I love the fact that they got 4 first-round picks from the Hawks for DeJounte Murray, because DeJounte Murray is an all-star, right? If you say, hey, he's an all-star point guard, it's like, yeah, awesome. He is an injury replacement after 2 injuries in the Western Conference to be an all-star replacement.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just one. Who knows? But like
there were 2 injuries, and he was the second.
LaMelo was on the other conference.
He was the second
so
all-star
he's
replacement.
Yeah. But like, you're getting Hawks picks and swaps where like the picks are based off the regular season. We know that they find the regular season extremely boring.
But they fucking find the Drew League extremely boring as well.
Given the heights that Trae Young has already fucking met. But yeah, getting a like solid all-star haul for DeJounte Murray, who might only be a one-time all-star, and I really like it for Atlanta. We talked about it, but 4 picks is awesome. They've refilled the coffers.
Is it 2 and 2? Like
yeah,
two
swaps,
straight and 2 swaps?
Two straight, 2 swaps.
Yeah.
And look, they just drafted 3 dudes in the first round.
And it was consecutively, right?
I believe so.
So the bet that they're making there is that in at least one of those years, the Hawks are shit.
Not even. You can just have the 20th pick and be like, fine.
Yeah, but
that's not as it. No,
you want to see upside. Like, if one of those seasons the Hawks don't make the playoffs, though, all of a sudden you've got a lottery pick.
So one of the picks they got was the 2023 Charlotte protected first, which has been thrown around a few times. That was in the Cam Reddish trade. Then they got 25, 27, 26. I said that the wrong way around. 25, 26 swap, 27.
Yeah.
So, way out in the future, Trae Young will still be an all-NBA guard and they'll still be good. But, like, you're allowed to just have an extra 20th pick.
Yeah.
That's fine. They don't have to be bad.
Or this rebuild takes 2 years and then you just are trading the 25, 26, 27.
Fuck it. How is this rebuild taking 2 years? But anyway.
Who knows with these cunts?
I like it. Buy low on Isaiah Roby. I've given them an A+. They went into this season with lots of questions. The main question was, is Greg Popovich going to be the most winning coach of all time? And they've exited this season with the most winning coach of all time. They have the future of the Atlanta Hawks, which is great to, as you say, trade or just draft. They've got a bunch of buy lows. They've got a bunch of first-round picks that they now have on the roster. And it's where you talk about Houston and OKC, where you can see the rebuild coming to life, you're going to say the exact same thing a year or 2 years from now with San Antonio.
Question.
Yeah.
Has having the winningest coach of all time ever meant less than it does right now for a team? Because it means nothing.
Yeah.
Because Pop still being there is kind of emblematic of how I feel about this team. It's like, what are we doing here? This all should have happened 2 years ago. There's no reason why this process shouldn't have started then. And I still kind of feel like this team is not going to be bad enough to compete with the bad teams.
I think they will.
Have
you seen this roster?
I don't think that this team is going to end up having a shot at a top 3 pick. I just don't. Not with Pop there.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I reckon this is the second worst team in the league next year.
Yeah.
Can you name their starting lineup? Actually, can you name me their 3 highest paid players?
Keldon Johnson is one of them.
Keldon Johnson
Doug McDermott
is second. Are you looking at it?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
All right,
but I'm thinking which one of these blokes is on their second or third contract?
Doug McDermott is second. Josh Richardson is third.
Yeah.
Danilo Gallinari is fourth.
Yeah.
That's the waiver.
Yeah.
And then Jakob Poeltl, who I think is a really good centre. But Romeo Langford, Devin Vassell, Josh Primo.
This is worse than what I in my head I thought it was. But I still think I stand by my.
All right, let's bet a picnic. Let's bet a picnic.
Let's bet a handshake.
I reckon this is going to be a bottom 3 team.
Peak organic mint.
Sure.
Block of chocolate.
Just for the record, none of us have bought anyone any of these chocolates in 160 episodes.
We do look out for each other on a night out. I still kind of just don't think that this is a team that's like bottoming out. Which if that's not the case, then like what's the point? Like what are we doing here? Not only has it taken us too long to get here, now that we're here, we're not like.
I reckon they are.
Doing it. Well,
that's just a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
Also, the Jays not capitalised on DeJounte. I reckon they are.
Yeah.
Scraping the barrel.
Yeah.
This is going to be a bad.
Keldon Johnson's like not bad. I don't mind that.
Is he your third best player in a championship team?
Could be.
And
he's like 23. So we'll find out.
Yeah. But a 4 who does he have much switchability on defense? Is he an offensive hub?
What were you doing when you were 23?
I was in lockdown. All right.
Okay.
Let's also the it does seem like Pop's going to stay around for another season. He was calling the dudes who got drafted, and also Kenny Atkinson declined the Charlotte job to come back for another year, and Quinn Snyder said, "I'm just going to take a year off."
How old do you think Pop is?
67.
You reckon he's 67?
No, 73.
Bro, you're bump that up. He's way older. No, he's 73.
Yeah. I thought you wanted to know how old he was 6 years ago. So that's why I quickly changed to 73.
How tall do you reckon he is?
He played, didn't he? I reckon he's 6'3".
He's 6'3". Have you seen that video of Stan Van Gundy from his coaching days? Yeah. And he's like, I don't want you to just do a dribble. I want you to kind of put a move on him, whatever you got. And then he just breaks out like fucking 7 moves in a row from the baseline to the half court.
Did you see someone did a remix of it where it was like every dribble, like the bass drops and then the camera shakes and stuff? Yeah, it's pretty good. All right, let's talk about the final team, the Utah Jazz, who traded away Rudy Gobert for a bunch of players and drafted Walker Kessler in that Rudy Gobert trade.
Don't you reckon Walker Kessler is the most Mormon name you've ever heard in your entire life? Just thinking about it.
Sounds like something you stay away from in The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
They lost Rudy Gobert, Bo Cruz.
He signed for Toronto.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Don't question yourself. You're right. I was so proud of ESPN showing some fucking restraint and not saying Bo Cruz on the move.
Nah, I fucking got a fucking Bleacher Report notification that said Bo Cruz. Hold on, let me find this shit. It was awful. No, I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up. But yeah, there was no restraint from Bleacher Report.
Poor bastards. Daniel House Jr. and Royce O'Neal also left. We're still waiting on the Donovan Mitchell trade. But far out. They got way more than neither of us, anyone thought was going to get for Rudy Gobert after his failings in the playoffs. And they're still going to get more assets in a Donovan Mitchell trade. So I've given them an A+. Even if they get the absolute minimum for Donovan Mitchell, I still think this is a great offseason.
Yeah, it is a great off-season. And I've given them an A+ as well. And I'll expand on why in just a second, because currently I'm trying to find out what religion Walker Kessler is. But I do know that he's in a committed relationship.
Try Googling Andrew Wiggins' wife.
No, it's Andrew Wiggins' sister.
He married his sister.
Oh, jeez. Nah, that's my information sourced from playerswiki.com. The article is, Walker Kessler. Who is Walker Kessler dating? Know about his girlfriend and relationship status.
Oh, you're always on those sites, man.
I've given the Utah Jazz an A+ for what I imagine is the same thing that you said, even though I was doing my own research. But what a haul, right? Like, we talked about it, but fucking pretty sick haul for a bloke who might be their second best player. I mean, I'm not really sure where I come down on the whole Rudy versus Donovan debate in terms of who's better, who's more valuable in a vacuum, who's more valuable to the Jazz. But, like, what's certain is that that's a conversation to be had. And they just got an absolute Kawhi Leonard level haul for Rudy Gobert. And it just becomes a numbers game. Like one of those assets is going to pop. Like, guaranteed. There's too many of them to not. And even in a world where they don't pop, those form the backbone of the next offer that you're going to make to bring in whoever you want to bring in for, through a trade. This team has gone from being kind of like locked in at a second round level for God knows how long. Certainly the last 3 years, that's been the ceiling that we've seen. And the roster construction with prime role players aging, like a Conley and a Bogdanovic, also being paid, $20+ million. There's no one else who's like a young role player who's going to come in and inject like a little bit of life, or who's on a cheaper contract. Like, all their role players are old and expensive. Their stars are expensive. There was not really any scope to improve this roster. So going the complete other way and getting the haul that they did is like literally textbook. Like, this will be taught at NBA
Danny
GM,
Ainge, yeah.
NBA GM University. Like, this will be one of the case studies they do in semester 2 of second year, which is tanking.
Danny Ainge knows how to tear things down.
Seriously though, he also knows how to build it up. Like, credit where credit is due.
Yeah.
He's built championship and championship level teams his whole career.
We make fun of him, but he is good at his job.
Yeah.
All right, just before we wrap up, that is the final team. I'm going to reward you with a little bit of a joke that I made today in this Facebook group.
Oh, I can't wait.
Where I'm currently working on a bit where Dobby from Harry Potter is trying to become a graphic designer, but he doesn't have the adequate assets to start. And then Harry emails him, and then he looks up and goes, Master has given Dobby eye stock.
Nah, that's pretty terrible. To be honest. I thought initially when you said Dobby, my mind went to Dobby from Peep Show. Dobbs.
Fucking Peep Show references per 36 been popping
at an all-time high. Do your Mark Corrigan impression again.
Oh, it wasn't a good impression. I just said the words.
4-9, Jeremy. 4. That's insane.
I'm not the dude who does that.
Aren't you?
No.
No, who is it? I don't know anyone else that watches Peep Show.
You should hear my mate Sean do a Shaq impression.
You made Sean?
Yeah.
Sean Conlon?
Yeah.
Shawnee C, do a Shaq impression.
Number 5. Javale Mcgee.
One of my favorite...
Tragic Bronson all over.
One of my favourite subgenres of comedy, other than omitting the 2 when talking about going to a place... is people doing impressions of other people doing impressions. It's always magical.
Oh, I can't believe it's up there with British humour. But yeah, man, this is big pod. Big pod split across 2 episodes. So fucking pat on the back to us, and I think there's some really good analysis in these off-season grades, and it was a really good off-season to analyse. So. Dante, I'll speak to you next week when we get back to our regularly scheduled programming, whatever that may be. But talk to you later.
Until next time, Coke by the trees.
We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingAds.org.au/get gambling off SBS with hyphens in between.